Do you ever struggle with remembering dance moves and remembering the order and remembering the routine? This episode is for you. Hello, my beautiful, gorgeous dance baby, and welcome to another episode of More Than Dance. Today, we are talking about the names that you call things so that you can remember them better. When you're first starting dance, there is a huge learning curve. There's a lot to learn all the time, and especially there's a lot to learn in the beginning because you're not only learning the dance moves, the routine, you're also learning the technique, and you're also learning the names. There's a whole language in dance for what we call things. And at the studio, we teach heels, we teach all types of styles, and there are some names for things that we take from ballet and jazz, and there are also moves that we only do in strut, or we do it in such a way that it's so uniquely different than the way we do it in jazz or ballet that it deserves its own name. So to name a few, we have the wop, which is simply when you wop right over. It's kind of like a fan sit or like bringing your legs in a fan. But how boring is that when you're at heels? So we call it a wop. You know where that name originated from. And we go like this with our legs. There's different types of wops. In fact, there was one circle time where I asked everyone, what's your name and what's your favorite type of wop? So there's a bunch of different ones. We also have calendula, which is named after a flower. And there's a move where we extend our legs like this in a shape that is flowery. So it's a calendula. There's also a move called an arrow, which is like our leg pointed out like a bow and arrow. There's also a move that we call a dag, which is where you like dagger out your leg. And through the years of teaching, I've come up with these names to call these things something so that my students can say like, we're doing that thing again. What's that thing? Oh, that thing is a wop. Oh, that thing is a calendula. So it's very important to have names for things when you're learning something new. It helps discover the reasons why we do certain things. In fact, today I was at sewing and I overheard my teacher explaining to someone what an understitch is. I know what a top stitch is, but I haven't learned understitch yet, and I still haven't because it wasn't part of the conversation. But there is different stitches for different reasons, and some of them are the same thing, but they're different names. And we see this a lot in terms of a back ball change, a pas de bourrée, or a chasse and a step together step, or a catch step and a chasse. Like there's a bunch of names that are the same names, but they mean the same thing. And when you're learning how to dance, you're going to be finding that. So there's that. Now there's this other thing that I just want to invite you to have fun. I'm always inviting my students to play while they learn. I think it probably comes from the fact that I went to school for elementary special education and taught for a year. And I think a lot of the things that I've learned about teaching comes from the principles of what I learned in school and how to make learning fun and playful. And also just in terms of creativity, this I didn't learn from school, but just in terms of being a creative person and also understanding that creativity is play. And the more that you can play, the more creative you can be. So when we're thinking about the way that we learn, we want to get creative with ourselves. So I want to tell you about this like funny scene from Friends. Friends is my favorite show. And it's when Phoebe is teaching Joey, how to play guitar. And she's teaching him, and the first thing that she says is, okay, like he's all ready to grab the guitar. And she's like, oh, no, the guitar is for later. First we learn. And he's like, oh, okay. And so she's like, all right, well, let's talk about chords. And if you're a musician or if you're anyone who knows anything about music, you know that chords are the basis of what you use when you're playing the guitar. So she's talking about the way that her hands are and the shape of her hands. And she's like, now, I don't know what the names of these chords are, but I know what I call them. And then she goes on and she shows the hand of what her hand is making when it's on the, and I still haven't learned the name of this, the staff of the guitar or the long thing, the stem. See, again, a perfect example of knowing names for things. So she's like, this is called bear claw. Now, my dad would be able to tell us which exact chord she's probably talking about. My guess is E. And then she goes, and this is turkey leg. And she goes like something like this. And then she goes, this is old lady. And I think that one's G. And so later on, you see them in this episode and they're practicing and come to realize Phoebe teaches Joey a lot of things because she then teaches him French, or tries to anyway. So that was just funny. I didn't put two and two together that she's always teaching in her Phoebe way, which is Phoebe's playful. So let's think about that. She's playful and she loves doing like a bunch of different things. Like she's Monica's helper helper. She's ready for the relax-a-taxi. She's ready to do the acting with Joey when she was holding the tray. Anyway, if you're a Friends person, you'll love this. If you've never watched Friends, oh my gosh, please watch it. So she's going through these chords and her names for them. And then eventually at the end of the episode, you hear her say, okay, turkey leg. And Joey's like saying the actual name of that chord. And she's like, what's this? Like, you have the real names? And I actually forget what happens after that. But the point that I would like you to leave with today is to invite more play into your learning, and to also remember that you can, if you haven't already, make up names for things that are repetitive. We talked about patterns and seeing and visualizing patterns as a dancer, and you're going to be seeing a lot of the same moves. Now, if your instructor isn't as playful as I am, she might have not created funny names for moves like we have. We just love a good WAP over here. And you can actually adopt new names for things so that when you're in the learning process, you're not saying everything one thing is, you're saying what it is that move is. Wow. That was a lot of is. And the reason why I like this is because this goes back to the principle of memory, which is that we remember things in 7 or less things. So if you have a list of 7 things, chances are you'll remember 7 or less of those items. Anything more than that, it's really hard for us to remember. So if you can and you want to remember more things, it would be important for you to couple and group those items into groupings so that you could potentially have 21 things instead of 7 things. Because if I had 7 things that I remember and I remember 7 groupings of 3, I could remember 21 things now. And you can test yourself on this because this is actually a fun thing. Like when I first learned this, which was light years ago, we did experiment with it. Even just like maybe take a look around what you see right now. If you're in your apartment, your house, if you're in your car, you're on the road, maybe you're at the gym, make a list of 7 things that you see and then group those things together. So if you're at the gym, you might see that there's, a treadmill and someone wearing a purple shirt and she has a phone, and that's a triplet. So there's 3 things now that you remember there, where maybe before you might just see, okay, treadmill, that's one thing. And so then you might move on and you might see that there's someone at the tricep equipment and they're wearing a blue shirt and then they have a black water bottle. So now you're remembering, oh, okay, there's the lady and she has a purple shirt and she's holding a phone and she's in the treadmill. That's 3 things for the one thing. And then there's someone over there and he's wearing a blue shirt and he has a black water bottle and he's at the tricep station. So when really I could remember treadmill, tricep, and now my brain is now thinking of those people on those machines instead of just the machines. So it gets really cool, and you can absolutely look this up. This is like a scientific fact. They've done studies on this, and I like to take what I've learned in terms of like a study and apply it to the way that I teach, because there are times where I'll teach no more than 7 things. And it's just to make sure that my students are accessing their memory and so that they're able to take advantage of the 7 or less things that we're remembering. Now, imagine if I taught the whole entire dance all at once. That would be far more than 7 things. But if I taught maybe a calendula into a WAP, they're going to remember calendula WAP, 2 things. But really what's in between there is we might have an arm styling and it might go into the calendula. But now they're remembering it as the arm movement plus the calendula is one thing instead of 2 separate things. And then the transition from going from the calendula back onto the floor into the WAP, well, that's 2 things. But really it's one thing in their head. So they're getting to do more efficient brain work and still get the same, if not better, results. So today I invite you to play a little bit while you're in the classroom, come up with some names and maybe even like share them with the class. Like, oh, we kept doing this and this reminded me of this. So I started calling it that in my head. And it's a great opportunity to have a laugh with yourself and the class potentially. And also it's helping with your memory. And I have heard countless times how hard dance is because of memory. And you actually aren't the only one suffering with memory. I mean, I've been dancing my entire life and still sometimes there's moments where I forget or I have like a slip up or I'm thinking about something else later on in the dance and maybe I'm not as focused on the current part, so I forget it. It's just part of the process of learning how to dance. And the best thing that we can do is make it easier and to make it more fun. And this is sure to do that. So I hope that this was helpful for you today, and I hope you have fun with this. And if it was helpful, it would mean the world to me if you shared this with a friend, maybe in your Instagram or maybe directly, because someone else is just like you and they're on their dance journey right now and they need all the help that they can get. Thank you so much, and I'll see you on the dance floor.